How's it going, Rams? Welcome back to another week of CTV Sports. I'm Mike Walsh.
And I'm Ruby Keyser, and here are your top stories for the week.
CSU football finishes the season with a shutout win over New Mexico on Senior Day.
Women's swim and dive prepares for a road meet in Albuquerque.
And finally, Out of Pocket returns as we select our favorite sports moments from the year.
All that and more on CTV Sports, which starts right now.
While many Ram fans were still recovering from their food coma brought on by Thanksgiving, CSU football took the field Friday one last time in Canvas Stadium as the Rams hoped to close out an otherwise dreadful season with a Senior Day win. And they did just that, shutting out the New Mexico Lobos 17-0. Making it the first time ever the Green and Gold have had a shutout on an opponent in Canvas Stadium history, with the previous coming all the way back in 2016 when the Rams did so to Fresno State 37-0. Though not as bad, Black Friday's edition still wasn't close, as CSU only allowed New Mexico to muster 9 first downs. The Rams had no problem on offense or defense, seeming to control this one from the opening whistle. And while this is just the third win of the season, Ram fans all over should be optimistic heading into 2023 because of the rendition of CSU's three-headed monster in Clay Millen, Avery Morrow, and Torrey Horton return to Canvas for another campaign. And with that, we can only hope to see a repeat of some of their amazing stats from this year. Already, we saw Millen set both the school record for completion percentage at 72.2% and the FBS record for a freshman QB. And of course, Torrey Horton, who was the Rams' top target by far this year, amassing over 70 receptions and 1,100 yards total to land him at 9th most yards receiver in the nation. And last but not least, Avery Morrow put together a slew of 100-yard games on his way to over 800 total rushing yards on about 5 yards per carry. So overall, the season was not a complete failure as we saw some great development from our players and coaches. With the first year under his belt, Coach Norvell should feel much more comfortable and we should hopefully see a much better team come next fall. But that's a wrap on football. Ruby, what's going on with men's basketball?
Thanks, Mike. And yeah, after a phenomenal outing against South Carolina on Thursday, CSU dropped its remaining 2 games in the Charleston Classic, losing to both host Charleston and Penn State by double digits. But the Rams returned home this past Saturday for a much easier opponent in Mississippi Valley State. Now, this is a team that got hammered 117-53 by 7th-ranked Baylor. Yikes. Granted, CSU is not Baylor by any stretch of the imagination, but it still hinted at the makings of a potential blowout. And that's exactly what happened. Colorado State swamped Mississippi Valley, forcing turnover after turnover. By the time the clock struck 0, CSU had 14 steals, and MS Valley gave away 25 possessions. The Rams also limited the Delta Devils to a 33% clip from the field. Their defense was terrific, and so was the offense, sinking 10 three-pointers and attacking the paint effectively, with multiple and one opportunities for the team in white. This all yielded a staggering 88-45 defeat. CSU guard John Tonje amassed a game-high 25 points on 8 of 16 shooting. Meanwhile, true freshman Tavante Jackson was a menace everywhere with 7 rebounds, 4 assists, and 5 steals. Isaiah Rivera had a solid night as well, scoring a dozen. Though starting guard Jalen Lake didn't put up a striking numbers on the score sheet, head coach Nico Medved had this to say about his performance.
I thought real key to the game was Jalen Lake's defense on Terry Collins, number 11. I thought he was really, really good early that way. Didn't let him get going, and I thought that kind of set the tone. And he's really smart. He's got good length. I think he started, he's taking a lot of pride in that. And it's not just about playing hard, but it's also being really, really smart and anticipating. And I thought he did a really, really good job of that. And I think the fans can see he's really taken a step forward on that end of the floor.
Yes, and I know it's 1-7 Mississippi Valley State, but given the dubious trend of CSU basketball this first month, I'll praise dominating results wherever they arrive. And the Rams will hope to do the same tomorrow when they face Loyola Marymount. Mike, what should we look for in this matchup?
Well, Ruby, though the name might not sound intimidating, I mean, none of you have probably ever heard of Loyola Marymount, and I don't blame you. The fact of the matter is that LMU is not a team to be taken lightly, and here's why. The Lions have won their last 4 straight, beating quality programs like Georgetown and, as you can see here, Wake Forest, both of them who have some rich basketball history. Add in wins against lesser-known opponents in Bellarmine and Morgan State, and it's a 4-game win streak. However, they're not the only ones cruising, as your very own Rams have held their own when playing here in Fort Collins, mastering a 19-1 record dating back to last year. That's right, 19-1, including an 8-straight streak. So hopefully we can see more of that Moby Madness on Wednesday and keep that unbeaten streak alive. But that's enough about the men's club. Ruby, I heard the women were also pretty active over the break.
That's right, Mike, and on the opposite side of the country, too, as the Rams spent some time in Sin City for the Las Vegas Invitational. The doubleheader featured Mercer and Auburn, and may I remind you that this was on the heels of a highly contested Mississippi State game that saw the Rams come up just short. And the Rams bounced back immediately, besting the Mercer Bears by nearly 20 points. The story of this wasn't so much CSU's dominating play as it was Mercer's poor offense. The Bears didn't make a single 3, with an overall field goal percentage below 30. Because of this, there wasn't really any chance to get back in it, as CSU controlled the tempo and won fairly easily. However, Friday's bout with SEC foe Auburn was a little bit different. The Tigers and the Rams were neck and neck the entire 40 minutes. 18 lead changes had it tied at 73 apiece with 21 seconds left. Unfortunately, with less than a second left, Auburn drew a foul to go to the line for 2, making the first and missing the second. CSU had a chance but couldn't convert, falling 74-73. On the bright side, McKenna Hofschild was fantastic as always, and Sydney Meck was nearly perfect from the field. For how great CSU has played, it's hard to see already 2 losses on the record. Hopefully, the Rams can find steady shooting again as the non-conference slate continues to roll around. And as a matter of fact, CSU is back at it again as we speak. Mike, what do you have from Greeley?
Thanks, Ruby. The Rams took the quick trip over to Greeley for a date with the Bears of Northern Colorado, and here's how that one is currently faring well into the second half. We're about 5 minutes left in the third quarter, and CSU is currently down 3 to UNC, 48-45. Although we do have some good performances, as McKenna Hofschild has 10 points and 5 assists already, as well as Sydney Meck with 13. CSU is also shooting worse than UNC, but hopefully they can change that in the rest of the third quarter and the fourth. But regardless of that outcome tonight, the Rams will have a few extra days of practice before their next home contest on Saturday when they face Western Michigan. Make sure to tune in next week to hear the results. And when we come back, CTV feature reporter Madeline Davis brings you unique insight into the video team for CSU athletics here on campus.
Plus, I'll give you a detailed look at the NCAA women's volleyball tournament. All of that and more right here on CTV Sports.
Welcome back from the break, Rams.
After a full month's worth of rest, CSU Swim and Dive will hit the pool again this Friday, traveling southwest to Albuquerque for a 3-way affair between Colorado State, host New Mexico, and Air Force. And with that, let's take a glimpse at the lines for each squad heading into this one. We'll start with our hometown team, the Green and Gold. The Rams are unbeaten at 4-0 with lopsided wins over Colorado School of Mines and New Mexico State. Though DU is uncomfortably close, with the Wyoming sweep has undoubtedly been CSU's highlight thus far. Moving on, we see the Lobos have experienced a less friendly fortune of events, butchered by losses to North Texas, Wyoming, and Northern Arizona. They do have a pair of wins over local talents in CSU Pueblo and Western Colorado. However, they are still sit below 500 at 2-3. And finally, Air Force has only treaded waters twice, but they've pulled out both, including a similar line against Wyoming as CSU soared the Falcons to 2-0. And what's not listed is the recent impressive showing at the Phil Hansen Invitational in Houston, where they took second place out of 6 teams. So keep your eye on Air Force as we enter the weekend. Regardless, I'm excited to see how the girls perform down in the Desert Valley. But now, Mike, I hear there's another upcoming meet in the Rams athletics. Is that right?
That's right, Ruby, and it's the first one of the season for track and field. The Rams will head down to the Springs for the Air Force Holiday Open, kickstarting a packed season that runs all the way through May, even spilling into June for the NCAA championships. Nevertheless, Friday's festivities are sure to give CSU coaches a better idea of how they should manage the roster going forward. Soccer, volleyball, and football have all passed. It's time for a new round of Division I sports here on campus, and I am all for it. And us sports reporters and fans alike aren't the only ones experiencing a change.
That's right, Mike, because with the transition from fall to winter also comes new efforts to capture all of the action. CTV feature reporter Madeline Davis joins us for an insight on that. Madeline?
Thanks, guys. Over the course of this semester, one of my goals was to showcase people and organizations within CSU and Fort Collins sports that don't get as much attention. As a broadcast person myself, one area that really interested me was video and live production of college sports. I recently spoke with Ram Vision, a video and broadcasting branch of CSU Athletics, to learn more about what happens behind the scenes during your favorite CSU sporting events.
Have you ever seen a video like this? Or maybe you've been on the Jumbotron. Perhaps even watched a Mountain West stream. Well, if you answered yes to any of those questions, you've witnessed the work of Ram Vision, a mostly student-operated branch of CSU Athletics.
So this is our control room. Basically, all of our production for Moby in venue and Canvas in venue happens in here.
In-game content is crucial to creating a fun game day atmosphere, and it's what happens in the control room that really makes the magic occur.
For in-game content, we film for the cameras that are showing like the game on the board, but we also have sponsored content and fan interactions.
This is mostly controlled by a director and technical director at the switchboard who communicate and work very closely with the marketing team.
So this is the switcher board. This is for the technical director and the director. We're on comms talking with our cameras out there and talking with marketing. We follow a script, and this is the switcher board. So anything you preview here goes into preview, and then you cut and it goes into program, and then that's what's live on the video board and for stream.
Ram Vision works with all CSU sports, but Lucy says that it's football that can be the most stressful at times.
It is the longest, and it has probably like twice as much content as any other sport. We show up to football a lot earlier than other games. It's probably the most stressful. There's more fans, there's more things to get through, so there's more stuff that could get messed up, but it's also really fun.
Lucy may only be a student, but she knows the experience and knowledge that she's gaining here will help her out a ton in the future.
We're given a lot of responsibilities being as student employees, and everything we do here are applicable to like jobs after this. Even though we are students, we're given a lot of responsibility, and I really appreciate that.
It was super interesting to see how many moving pieces go into creating a fun game day atmosphere and broadcasting a sports stream. Definitely opened my eyes. Mike, back to you.
Thanks, Madeline. Ram Vision for sure does a lot for CSU athletics across the board, including volleyball. Which brings us to the elephant in the room. Unfortunately, the hype of hosting the Mountain West tournament dissipated real quick as the legacy of Tom Hilbert crashed to a flaming defeat in the first round last Wednesday. In an exhausting, hard-fought match, the third-seeded Rams lost a heartbreaker to sixth-seeded San Diego State as the valiant and desperate effort was not enough to overcome what had already been an iffy stretch as of late. CSU seemed to be on life support throughout, gasping for air only occasionally with a pair of two-point set win victories. But in the end, the Aztecs, who barely qualified for the tournament, came ready and with a mission, knocking off the home court threat in 5 sets. And though it was a rough exit, Fort Collins faithful should not be distraught because whoever is the new head coach will inherit pretty much the exact same locker room. Other than outside hitter Jackie Van Liefde, every team member returns, including the one on my right. So hopefully we can expect improved veteran play to make next year more memorable. But in any case, you might be wondering which Mountain West school actually did come out on top, because let me tell you, it was not San Diego State. Utah State will open with Arkansas, who comes in as the 6th seed on Louisville's side of the bracket, And though the Rebels were eliminated early because of the revamped NCAA tournament selection that allows 64 teams instead of 32, they actually received an at-large bid to make the field. Now, Ruby, wait, where'd you go? The volleyball expert left us at the worst time. All right, that's right. We're going to go to a short break, Rams. But when we come back, Ruby will provide you with an in-depth analysis of the women's volleyball tournament and its most intriguing matches in the opening rounds. So don't go anywhere.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
Quick, welcome back to CTV Sports. And hey, Ruby, women's college volleyball is increasingly becoming more popular. So what should we know about the broader landscape heading into the first round of matches on Thursday?
Yeah, Mike. So on Sunday night, the much anticipated bracket was released for the NCAA Volleyball Championship. Unfortunately, the Rams fell just short one spot of making the tournament, as we mentioned earlier. However, this is arguably the most competitive pool of teams yet, and the first time where there will be 64 teams rather than 32. So with that, here's my breakdown of the bracket, starting with the top left portion of the bracket. So as you can see up here, we're missing Texas is the #1 seed, which they're favored to win the tournament by a lot of people. They've had a super dominant year. And then Minnesota will be #2 down here in the top part. And then Ohio State #3 and Marquette #4. So the key game that I want to focus on in this part is the Georgia-Towson game, which this game is interesting because both teams have kind of similar RPIs. UGA is sitting at 38 and Towson is sitting at 32. And UGA beat #11 Florida and Arkansas, which those are both two very strong teams. You'll take a look at their offense right here on the screen. And then Towson beat #7 Pitt, which is a really big win for them. And so I think this is going to be the most competitive match in the top left portion of the bracket and definitely something worth watching. I honestly don't know who's going to win this one. I might go with Georgia just with them beating #11 Florida recently. So that's probably where I go with that. And then we're going to move down to the bottom left portion of the bracket where you can see Stanford sitting at #1. They're down here playing Pepperdine, which Pepperdine was in the top 25 for a good chunk of the start of the year. So they kind of they had an outside hitter quit the team, and they've had some struggles, leaving them as one of the last teams picked into the tournament. But I think this could be a semi-competitive game. And then #2, San Diego, which they're my favorite to win the tournament. Personally, they're playing Northern Colorado, who the Rams did play in preseason and fell to. Northern Colorado also won their conference tournament. And then you'll see Kentucky sitting at #3 and Creighton sitting at #4. The game that I picked for this part of the bracket is Washington State versus UNLV. As you know, UNLV, they won the outright Mountain West championship. You'll see some Washington State offense here. Washington State is sitting at an RPI of 34. They have a strong conference, but they've lost some weird games against UCLA and CU, but they've also beat USC, so they're kind of a weird team there. Here's some UNLV offense. You'll see Mountain West Newcomer of the Year on the setter position and Offensive Player of the Year, or Player of the Year on the outside. And they won the Mountain West, like I said earlier. The only legitimate game that they won in the preseason was against KU. So I honestly think the Rebels can take down Washington State in this game. So I think that's definitely one to watch as well. And then we'll move to the other portion of the bracket, which is up here. We have Wisconsin sitting at #1. We have Pitt sitting at #2, which is what I was talking about earlier. And then Florida sitting at #3 and Penn State sitting at #4. The game that I picked was also two teams that were close in RPI. We had TCU playing Washington. TCU just beat #10 Baylor, which is a pretty big deal. They just beat them a couple weeks ago. So they're on a little bit of a hot streak. And UW has faced some serious injuries this season, so you'll see a little bit of their offense in a second. They've lost to some lower teams in the conference, losing to Arizona, Arizona State, CU, and Washington State, but they beat USC again. So here's some footage of their offense against USC. They have some of their players back. They had some key pin hitters out. One of their replacement hitters went out too, and so it's been kind of a crazy year for them. And then moving down to the bottom portion of this bracket, we have Louisville sitting at number 1, which they're also a big favorite to win this tournament this year, and they're pretty fired up to win it. They haven't won it yet in a couple years, and so number 2, Nebraska, and then number 3, Oregon, which is exciting for me because I'm from Oregon, and then number 4, Baylor. And so, as you know, CSU played Baylor in the preseason as well. And then the key games that I wanted to focus on for this one, I just wanted to talk about CU is playing Rice. And so this will be kind of an interesting game, just a regional thing. As you know, CU split with CSU, and Rice just beat Creighton. But CU also had a lot of success in the Pac-12 this year. So they beat Washington State, USC, UW, and so I think that will be an interesting game. And then Utah State plays Arkansas, which here's some Utah State offense. They obviously were on a very big hot streak in the tournament. They completely took over. Both of their outside hitters had great numbers. Their right side, they run a lot of different plays in the middle. You'll see a flood right here, pretty dominant in the tournament. And so they beat UCLA early on in the season, beat UNLV in the Mountain West tournament, and won the Mountain West tournament. So that's pretty crazy. CSU did beat them their one time on the road facing them. And then here's some of Arkansas's offense. You can see they have number 10 in the back row was their most dominant player when we played against them. She is kind of a feisty outside hitter, but they haven't done great recently, but they did just beat number 7 Georgia Tech. So that's kind of my breakdown of some key games, and I don't know about you, but I think it's going to be a very exciting tournament and an unpredictable tournament, as I'm always hoping for some big upsets. So I'd love to see San Diego win that game and see UNLV win their game too. Little shot for the Mountain West, but yeah.
Very interesting stuff, Ruby. Thank you for that. But I have to ask you this. Who do you think will be celebrating in Omaha when it's all said and done?
Well, Mike, like I said, I would love to see San Diego win that game, but I feel like Louisville might take it this year. Texas is really favored to get it this year as well, but I want to put my bet on San Diego. They've had a great year. They're 27-1, I believe, and they just won the West Coast Conference, and I'd love to see a smaller conference team win it this year. So,
I mean, you're the expert, so I'm just going to go with the same pick as you. And with that, Rams, we'll take another break, but stick around, because in this week's version of Out of Pocket, we reflect on the CSU football season and the greatest sports moments of 2022, and you certainly won't want to miss it.